Hello, everybody. This is Constance from Mysterious Galaxy. I am very excited because tonight we have a local author virtually in the house with us. We are joined by Sam Hooker, and I'm super excited because we are celebrating the third and final book in his trilogy, and it is Now Before the Dark. And I love it because it is about a guy who is a phenomenal accountant, which no one ever really gives much excitement to. And he has to save us all from a very crazy world with a very ragtag, the word helpful is potentially the wrong word, group of people lending him help. But I will let Sam tell you more about that and the whole series in general. Also, just before I disappear, this is the Vanna White section for everyone. If you have any questions, make sure that you ask them. That's the best part of events because you have the author at your mercy to ask questions. And Crowdcast makes it really easy. If you look down below, there will be a ask a question button, as that would imply. If you hit that button, it'll pop up and you can submit your question. And also, the best way to support an author and their new book, of course, is to buy it. You all knew that was coming. And if you look down below, there is a buy, and you will notice it says signed and personalized book, not book plate, but actual book, which I feel like is a prized turkey during these quarantine times. So if you want a signed and personalized book and to support an amazing local author, make sure you click that button down below. Sam, I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to you, and I will see you at the end of the event.
Great. Thank you, Constance. Thanks for that introduction. And thanks to Mysterious Galaxy for putting this on, for putting up with my ridiculous writing career, and for having me. And to all of you, to everybody who's joining us online, thanks so much for taking time out of a Thursday. I asked if we could have a Saturday. They said I probably couldn't pull off a Saturday. So here we are on a Thursday. Anyway, so I've finished writing this trilogy. Terribly Serious Darkness is the name of the series. And it's, as Constance said, it's about, yes, Thursday is the new Saturday. Thank you. It's about Sloot Peril, who has grown up in the old country. His loyal Salt of Solstadt, which is the capital of the old country. And it started off in book one. Book one is Peril in the Old Country. Just a prolific accountant and really horrible everything else, living in a draconian kind of nightmare society, and it just gets worse from there. I think it was Vladimir Nabokov said that an author's job is in Act 1. You chase your protagonist up a tree. In Act 2, you throw rocks at him. In Act 3, you get it down. You get him down. Well, I kind of kept him up the tree for 3 books, and I'll leave it up to you to kind of decide at the end whether I actually did manage to get him down or not. The jury may still be out. I will say that it's been really great writing about Sloot for the last 3 years. I honestly, if anybody wants to ask how I came up with the idea, I'll just go ahead and head you off at the pass and say that I cannot remember. It was kind of just a conglomeration, I guess, of several different ideas that I've had over the years. And I put them all together, and this was the result. In writer circles, we talk about writing in terms of there's kind of a scale or a spectrum of plotting on one end, which is where you plot your work out. You have outlines, detailed notes, character histories, all that kind of thing. And then at the other end, you have pantsing, or flying by the seat of your pants, whether you're actually wearing pants or not. Writing is a very solitary thing. And you don't necessarily have to wear pants. I am wearing pants. I figured everybody might want to know that, because of that weird little diatribe that, since this is live, I can't really go take back. Anyway, I started off being very plotty, being very very conscious about everything that I was doing and taking a lot of notes and putting things down and making sure that I didn't miss anything, which was good. And I think that that's necessary to a point. But you can definitely, I've found for myself, I don't want to speak for all authors, and I can't speak for you or anybody else who wants to write a book. I can't really speak to what is right or what is the best way to write a book. I can say that the best way for me to write a book is to write a whole heck of a lot of notes. I'm in one of those note-taking phases on a new work that doesn't even have a title yet right now. And just to take a bunch of notes and to figure out who the characters are and how they would react in any given situation and what's going on in the world. Is there a political climate? Do I even care about that? What are the relationships between the characters and things like that? But then when it actually comes time to say, okay, there's this great big stack of notes. There's not an actual stack of notes because I do everything on a computer. I really wouldn't even know how to buy paper. Anyway, so I've got my notes file up here on my computer, and I say, okay, well, it's time to write. Well, I don't have at that point the entire structure worked out necessarily. I kind of know the general arc of where the story is supposed to go and where the characters will begin and where I'd like for them to end up. But I don't necessarily have the whole thing mapped out yet. It's some of the most fun that I can have in the first draft is to say, there's this man and he's very dour because he has 30 seconds to live or whatever it is. And then say, okay, and then what happens? That is the eternal question that you just ask, that I ask over and over and over again while I'm writing. And so, well, he's dour because he has only 30 seconds to live, but why is he not panicking? Okay, well, he's not panicking because he can manipulate space-time. Okay, so that 30 seconds to live just became a year to fix it, whatever it is. And he's also not panicking because, and he is in fact very annoyed because not only does he have to fix this, he has to fix it again. And he has to do this just constantly. It's constantly happening to him that, oh God, I only have 30 seconds to live again. I really was looking forward to watching some television today, but now I have to go back in time and save my own life. This is really getting tedious. And so, that's how I can make it. You can kind of decide what kind of story you're writing, or even what kind of chapter that you're writing within the story as you progress, and to give your characters the chance to react in a way that's very natural for them. Some of the first things that I wrote, I really did try to just kind of map out every step along the way so that I wouldn't have to think about it too hard while I was writing it. I would just get to write on it and just, work, concentrate on colorful use of language and metaphor and that sort of thing. But I would inevitably find myself saying, okay, well, it's been a bit sterile for a little while. I haven't injected any humor because I've been too busy working on getting them to the next steps. But not only that, I get to a point I'd say, okay, Sloot, for example, is supposed to charge headlong into battle. Sloot's a coward. He wouldn't charge headlong into battle. So as I'm typing it, I'm kind of having this internal monologue, and I say, and Sloot, upon the precipice, step to the front lines, abruptly turns around and starts running in the other direction. Shit, I hadn't planned for this. Shoot, sorry. You've all heard bad words before. And so that's where I kind of found my happy place in the writing process, was to have this stack of notes and know what's going on in the world and know if any given character made any given choice at any given time, this is how everybody else would react to it, and this is kind of the problems that I'm starting for myself that I'll have to solve later on down the road, and I can kind of make those choices in the moment, and it really gives my characters a chance to surprise me and let them have their own voices that aren't just me speaking in a funny accent. Let's see here. Okay, no questions yet. And this is super fun to have a captive audience where I'm the only one who gets to speak. So I actually did, I did a little bit of a reading on Facebook, Facebook Live last night. Questions are in the next tab. There are tabs? Okay. Is this book the same length as the others? Thank you for that one. It is not. It is, in fact, longer than the others by about, I think it's, I want to say that I could get up and look at it, but I'm not going to do that. Peril in the Old Country, I think, was right at about 300 pages, maybe a little bit more. Soul Remains was closer to 400. This one's about 450, so it weighed in a little bit heavier than the other ones. When I did my reading on Facebook last night, I had to do it off my Kindle because this is prison, apparently. No, I hadn't received a copy in the mail yet. So I finally got this one today, and I've already marked it up and dog-eared the pages. So that's great. And I'll get to a little bit of a reading here in just a little bit. But let's see what other questions we have here. How did writing the third book compare to the first two? Was it easier or hard to wrap up everything with this character and the world? It was easier and harder at the same time, if you can imagine that. It was easier to start because, like I was just saying about kind of knowing what's happening in the world and knowing who your characters are and how they would react to things, that's a lot of the pre-work. And I never really get to start writing for the first few months that I'm working on, working on a treatment and getting all my notes together and things like that. So it was definitely easier. And then it was like, okay, well, here are my characters. I can add in a couple. Some of them can fade into the background if they're no longer that relevant. And here we go. But it was definitely harder in that the paint had already dried on a few of the corners. And there were a few things, I remember that there were a few times when I was writing Soul Remains, which is the second book of the series, that I thought, okay, I've got this great idea, and wait, crap, nope, that's not going to work, because I had already done something that completely, contradicts or prevents it or whatever in the first book. That was already in publication, so, okay, what else have you got, hooker? And so it was definitely, I had to, kind of hang out some new threads and make, work around some things and, circumvent some things that I had gotten myself into. Same thing for the third book, but the third book was even harder because in the first two, I got to kind of just like leave things hanging out, leave things unanswered. Anton Chekhov had this idea of, it's referred to as Chekhov's gun. And I forget which play it was in, but he had a gun hanging up on the wall. And I guess the maxim that goes along with it is if you have a gun that's been, sitting on the mantle since Act 1, it had better go off in Act 3. And I've always held on to that. I've always thought that was a really good idea. And I've always kind of felt driven to wrap up everything that I've done. And I didn't want to just kind of like leave things hanging out there. But I also didn't want to do the last episode of Game of Thrones. And I think everybody here probably knows what I'm talking about. They just kind of did some ugly triage and kind of tied some tourniquets and made some choices that left me going like, what? Mostly because life doesn't wrap up like that. You get to the end of, you serve your 2 weeks notice at one job and then you start another one. But you don't get new parents as a result. You don't, everything in your life doesn't completely wrap up, in one go at one time. And so, I did kind of leave just a little bit of kind of like unimportant, I tried to leave the illusion of continuity at the end. And just kind of left it at, and this was the end of this, but now other things will happen, and these people are still alive, or whatever passes for alive, given their metaphysical states. So that was hard, and so wrapping up all of the big threads really kind of gave me a headache toward the end, and maybe that's where the extra 100 pages came from in this bad boy. But so yeah, I would say that definitely starting the subsequent books was easier, but finishing them was definitely harder. And like I said, I kind of painted myself into a couple of corners along the way. Who is your favorite character in the book? Oh, man. I can't say Sloot, right? It's too obvious. Yeah. No, in this book, at the very end of the second book, I introduce a character whose name is Igor. And Igor is a gremlin who is, he's on the mischief wagon. He is trying to give up gremlining and become a bard instead. And throughout the third book, he relapses a little bit here and there. And I think that he represents, to me anyway, the best intentions of all of us. We all, New Year's is right around the corner, and most of us are going to come up with some plan of, how things are going to change in the new year, and what we're going to do better, and, how many push-ups we're going to do every day, or whatever it is. And, by February, we'll just be drinking again. But that won't stop us from making a new resolution the following year. And every once in a while, those resolutions stick. So he, in my mind, really, he represents the human spirit and the tenacity of the human spirit. So he is hopeful and optimistic in a way that that nobody else is. And I love having that guy around. Let's see. So I'm going to jump around in the questions here. Let's see. What is the process of creating the covers for the series? So that's been an interesting kind of roundabout thing. When I first released Peril in the Old Country, I self-published it. And I was very quickly slapped around both by my current publisher and by my loving wife. Disclaimer, neither of them actually physically slapped me. Or I'm being held against my will, I'm told to say that. But before I had done that, I had gotten in touch with a friend of mine who I had known from back in Houston. Her name's Leanne, and she's a fabulously talented artist. And I had seen a lot of her stuff that she had done, pen and ink stuff, on the internet. And it just spoke to me. There was something about just her style, the medium that she used, and everything that that I thought, oh, and I think Leanne's here. Then, okay, well, go ahead and get a swell head, girl. You deserve it. I contacted her and I was like, hey, I'm writing a book about this weird guy. So, how about you design? Okay, I am going to stand up and get the other books. Let's see here. There they are. These are my author copies. I can tell from all the tabs in them. And so I worked with her to put together the first drawing of Sloot. And she just about nailed it right out of the gate. I had to tell her to make him a little bit more worried looking and a couple of things like that. But I mean, we went through like 2 or 3 revisions tops, and it was just perfect from the get-go. And so she drew that, and I kind of put it on a far inferior cover to this is the edition that came out from Black Spot Books. So I did an okay job, I guess. But then I met up with Lindy Ryan, my publisher, and she roped me into the whole deal. We work with a very, very talented cover and layout artist in Bahrain by the name of Najla Camber, and she kind of did the rest of this. She picked the weird fonts and put together all the other stuff on there. that was the final result. So then for the second and third books, it was basically just kind of a very abbreviated version of that. I went to Leanne. She made a new wonderful drawing of Sloot. We tossed that over to Najla, and there it is. So fortunately for me, I don't have to do any more cover art because I am not a visual artist, or not a good one anyway. Let's see. I answered that one. I'm definitely jumping around here. Let's see. Can you talk about your process for writing humorous dialogue? Yes, I can. So I've been a lifelong fan of authors like Terry Pratchett and Douglas Adams and Roger Zelazny, who it's always seemed to me like it came effortlessly to them, and they just were able to kind of pull out these witticisms. And I think I think the first book that I read in this kind of humorous fantasy genre, it was either, I believe it was Bring Me the Head of Prince Charming by Roger Zelazny, one of my favorite books to date. It was just enchanting and amazing and wonderful, and I loved it. And then not long after that, I read The Color of Magic, which is the first Discworld book by Terry Pratchett. And I must have been 14, maybe, when I read that. And I had always wanted to write. I think the first thing I ever actually wrote was Ghostbusters 2, before Harold Ramis did his version. Time will tell which one's going to be more successful. But mine was like 11 pages long, and I wrote it in pencil in one of those steno books. And so I always knew that I'd wanted to be a writer. And when I finally got to read Pratchett and Zelazny and Neil Gaiman and guys like that, that was when I decided, well, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to be a horror novelist or a romance novelist or any of those other things. I'm sure all of that's very great, and I do like some horror novels and things like that. But this is what I want to write. This is the what's in me. And so, writing humorous dialogue, a lot of the time, it's simply a matter of making. It's a multi-pronged, multi-surfaced kind of thing. So I have ridiculous characters, like a gremlin who doesn't want to do any mischief, or philosophers. Philosophers are just inherently ridiculous. And you just kind of put them in conversations with each other and have them speak their truth. Oftentimes that's enough, but also there is a little bit of kind of a narrative style of things that I mix in. I've been very heavily influenced by Terry Pratchett and kind of coming up with odd metaphors and things like that. Like I talked at one point about Arthur flim-flamming a group of people, and I said that he was making philosophical sausages. It was just the cut off bits and entrails of proper philosophy stuffed into a casing that fell off of a cart. It was horrible and ridiculous, but if you put it on a plate with enough ketchup, you'd get someone to swallow it. And so, just kind of playing with metaphor and things like that, and just putting ridiculous people in ridiculous situations, it just kind of hones itself. I watch a lot of stand-up comics. I read a lot of humorous novels and things like that. And so it's just when I come up with something that's funny, oftentimes I'll pick it apart and go, oh, that's why it's funny, and make some notes on it. And then it's no longer funny to me. So I've kind of ruined humor for myself. But at the same time, it's, I understand that humor a little bit better, and I'm able to put it down on a page and fret over whether anybody else will think that it's funny and read it 300 times so it's no longer funny to me. And then I hand it off to my wife, who reads it and says, yes, it is funny. You've just read it too many times. Or no, this isn't funny. Try again. And this time don't embarrass yourself. So humor is very much, it's a challenge to write, but I've tried to write things that aren't humorous and I just can't stick with it. So for me anyway, if it's not funny, I just don't feel like writing it. Let's see here. Now that you've finished the series, can you tell us anything about your next book project? I don't have one. I'm working on a project that I want to release as kind of like a multi-part web series. So it'll be novel-ish, and I'll probably publish it as a novel after the fact. But I'm playing with kind of like a shorter kind of episodic format, and it's coming together really well. And I keep taking some time off to work on other things or to play guitar or something else. Let my brain cool down on it, and then I come up with some more ideas. So I'm still moving things around. But I'm hoping that maybe mid 2021 that I'll get to start putting something out. So I will say, just follow me on Instagram, because I may be using that as part of the vehicle for this, new thing that I'm doing. Let's see here. I think I've answered everything. I do have a quick reading that I'm going to do real quick, just because people dig that kind of thing. This is the beginning of the chapter called The Sam Hooker is my Instagram handle. The Sam Hooker, all one word. Sloot's feet were on fire. Not literally, though that may have been better. Hold still, said a remarkably muscular person with a deep yet feminine voice. She needn't have said anything, really. Her left hand's grip on Sloot's foot was as unmoving as the damp stone floor of the torchlit room. Her right hand moved a needle and thread deftly through his big toe, which dangled in a way that toes shouldn't. At least the rest of his toes weren't dangling. They were piled in a brass bowl. Sloot screamed in an automatic way. He'd done it so often he no longer had to think about it. That left his mind free to reach the conclusion that Arthur was right. He was predictable. His screams stopped of their own accord when Gwen walked into the room. Her plunging neckline made Sloot forget how his mouth worked. Poor Sloot, Gwen tittered. As an aside, Gwen is a love demon. You should have let me know you were coming. This could have been avoided. Sorry, Sloot winced as the needle continued its work. He had no idea where he was, much less the etiquette regarding which demons he should call before visiting, or why the penalty for unannounced arrivals was the removal and reattachment of one's toes. It seemed a horribly inefficient punishment, but that was the Inferno for you. It's a good thing they started from the bottom, said Gwen. Demons' eyes are very potent ingredients in their magic. Sorry, said Sloot. Whose magic? The Blessed Few. They run the monastery here at Blassigtop. Sloot had heard of Blassigtop in school during a geography lesson on the barbaric wastes outside the Old Country. He'd been taught that it was very much like every other heathen waste, a horrible place where the resident savages had yet to be tamed by the wisdom and grace of the Dominator, long may he reign. It was technically a nation, and the only one bordering Carpathia that hadn't been invaded by one Vlad or another. You wouldn't happen to know how I got here, would you? Gwen shrugged. The better question is how you managed to sleep through having your toes cut off. Perhaps, said Sloot. He yelped as his surgeon started on another toe. Over the course of his life, Sloot had awoken countless times as a result of nerves, bad dreams, or for no reason at all. He surmised that waking for a very good reason, like amputation, was simply unfamiliar territory. So, what brings you all the way up here? Asked Gwen. Did you miss me? Yes, said Sloot. He shook his head. No, I'm not sure. I was working in my ledger, and then I woke up and my toes were being sewn back on. You're lucky I was here, said Gwen. I'm not, said a wrinkled old man in a hat that must have been a practical joke. Tough luck, your thoughtfulness, said Gwen in that breathy way that made everyone in earshot squirm in their seats. But there are rules against cutting up live demons for parts, you know. He looked dead to me, said the old man with an agitated wave. Got all his toes off before he woke up. What sort of demon lets that happen, eh? The day doesn't have to be a total loss, Gwen purred. Surely there's something else you want. She raised a salacious eyebrow. The old man snorted. That might have worked 70 years ago. Ah, said Gwen. Vows of celibacy make it so difficult to deal with monks. What? No, said the old man. You were just prettier back then. Gwen's brow wrinkled and her mouth dropped open. Sloot chided himself for noticing how buxom she seemed when she was offended. If he was being entirely forthright, even her eyes going pitch black and her claws coming out didn't detract from her allure. Luckily, he had the searing pain of toe reattachment to distract him. You think you can resist me, mortal? Gwen hissed like a barrel full of snakes. Probably not if you really decided to turn it on, the old man shrugged. Oh, that's a long tail you've got. I can sell dried demon tail by the inch. Valuable stuff. Ew, Gwen recoiled. That's not the sort of flesh peddling I go in for, Abbot. The old man giggled. Sloot yelped. The woman sewing his toes back on menaced the airspace around Sloot's nose with a finger. Sorry, said Sloot. Hold still, I know. She told you to hold still? Asked the abbot. Sloot nodded and whimpered as the needle started into another toe. Sister Voracious must really like you. The blessed few take vows of silence, you know. We're only allowed one word every 5 years. She just spent a decade on you. The look that Sister Voracious shot at Sloot was a threat, a warning, and a dare all rolled into one. Earn it, the look seemed to say, or the stitches come back out. And I can't read much more than that at a time because pretty much everything is spoilers. Actually, the fact that Sloot is a demon at all is kind of a spoiler, but you can kind of look at the cover and tell. So I felt okay with that. Anyhow, that is the book, and I think we've got about 10 minutes left. Let's see here. Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate that. Let's see here. Some praise for the covers. Thanks for that. Yeah, so my Instagram handle, I'll put it in the chat here, is @BSamHooker. And you can always look that up or any other information about me at my website, shooker.co. Somebody else has samhooker.com. And yeah, I don't know, this is just where I ended up. So if anybody knows that other Sam Hooker, kick him in the shins for me, will you? Let's see. Have you written more or less in 2020? I wrote quite a bit. I did actually start on a novel in the first half of the year that was kind of outside of my normal or milieu or obra, whatever you want to call it. And I just got to the point where I just wasn't enjoying writing it anymore. And I'm definitely not making a ton of money off of writing. So if I'm not enjoying it, why do it? So I put that one in the shelf. I think I got about, I don't know, a couple of 100 pages written of that. I may come back to it at some point and dust it off and see if I can make something of it at some point in the future. But right now, that's just not the case. So I had this other idea for this web series while I was writing that. And I kept finding myself thinking, damn it, I have to write this stupid novel. I'd really rather be writing that other thing. And it was, the lights came on. I was like, oh, right, I could just do that because I wasn't under contract or anything like that. So so I flipped over to this. So I've planned 2 just about complete works this year, and I wrote a couple of 100 pages. So I would say that I have not written as much this year as I have in years past. but I've done a ton of work. I'd say that the amount of work that I've done in the past year has been 90% of average, I would say. I've also got a three-nager running around who gets a lot of my time. So, I've been a little bit distracted. Let's see. How often do you call your mother? Not as often as I should. And I think that can be said of anyone at all times. Really, all that she has to do to get me to call her is to use my full first, middle, and last name, and I would probably feel that through the ether across time and space, and the guilt would compel me in the moment to pick up the phone, regardless of whatever other surgery I was dealing with or anything else. Let's see. Oh, okay. If you could revive one of your characters from this series in the future, who would it be? Oh, I'm kind of happy where I've left most of them. I think if anybody were to get a spin-off, I think Arthur or Igor, either of them would be a great choice. Myrtle, Sloot's girlfriend, is far too competent, and she was really kind of the glue that held this whole thing together. It's much easier to write about damaged goods kind of characters. So I think oh God, Arthur should not start a podcast. That would be horrible. I think he or Igor, both of them have very long and arduous hero's journeys ahead of them. So either one of them, I think, would be a great choice. Let's see here. What section or scene brought you the most joy to write, and which one was the most challenging? The dance contest. Please read Now Before the Dark. If for no other reason, just skip straight ahead to the dance contest. I think that's about 2 chapters worth. And I think I jammed more jokes and puns per square inch into those 2 chapters than probably in every other book that I've ever written combined. It was a joy. It was my greatest burden. It broke my sanity in so many horrible ways that, when this came in the mail, that was the first thing that I did, was open it up to that and try to decide if it was as ridiculous as I remember, because I think those 2 chapters took me about a month to write. Maybe not that long. It was kind of a month mixed into other things and taking notes and leaving things aside. Yeah. If you could live in this world for one day without dying, what would you do? Where would you go, and why? Oh my God. I think I would run screaming away from the old country in Carpathia. I would just go to Nordheim and hang out with the Vikings. I wrote very, very little about the Vikings. It was kind of inspired. I wrote my very first novel, The Winter Riddle, which is a standalone, featured the Vikings pretty heavily, and not the exact same Vikings, maybe, I guess. I don't know. Like I said, I didn't write that much about them, but very much inspired by the same ideas. So very cool people. Let's see. Have you read or watched anything? Well, I just jumped. Sorry. Have you read or watched anything to work on your writing this year? Yeah. One of the great things about being a writer and in finding your own unique voice, because as much as I'm influenced by Terry Pratchett, and I sincerely love his work, and I think of his death back in 2015 as one of the greatest tragedies of literary tragedies of our time. As much as he's influenced me, I never wanted to be Terry Pratchett. I want to be Sam Hooker. I want to write my own thing. And so everything that I've watched and everything that I've read, Downton Abbey was a big influence on the thing that I'm putting together now. everything that I read, everything I look at, everything that I do, song lyrics from bands that I really like, everything that I read goes into my writing in some way or another, or kind of directs the course, because when I read horror novels and things like that, I read oh gosh, what was the name? Read a very good horror novel earlier this year, and now I'm totally spacing on the name of it. There was just these very visceral parts of it that I was able to kind of weave in, and in this series, Terribly Serious Darkness, I do have to have that darkness, and I have to have those visceral, gritty, brutal parts that I can just kind of joke about later, like, oh yeah, isn't it funny that Sloot's getting his toes sewn back on right now, things like that. So every little thing, grisly little stuff like that, it all comes back. Sloot has a girlfriend, so he has to be romantic from time to time. Heroes make sacrifices, and Sloot is an anti-hero for sure, but he's still the hero of this story. Let's see. And what are you listening to when you write? Most of the time, it's Danny Elfman. I absolutely love his work, and I listen to a lot of kind of instrumental stuff, scores that he's written for, Tim Burton's movies and things like that. The Wolfman soundtrack that he did is on constant repeat on my playlist. And I think that might have been my warden jumping in to say that time is nearly up. Or do we have any more?
Sorry, time is getting close, but also in the yield age of internet, my internet went out on me, so I busted out my phone and started using my cellular data, and thus it popped my screen up. So I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you mid.
No, that's totally fine. Thanks for your stalwart dedication to the cause here. I was just about to say, or I've been meaning to say for some time, that Mysterious Galaxy has been just an amazing cornerstone of my writing career thus far. And I cannot say enough great things about the store itself, or the people who work there, or the people that I've met there. I met Tomi Adeyemi there. That was crazy. She just happened to be there on a day that I was there, signing far more books than I will ever need to sign, probably. So I will forever support local bookstores and local booksellers, because they're far better than the heartless giants who shall remain unnamed, but everybody, I think, knows who I'm talking about.
The big A, I think that's what some people call it. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for always supporting the store too. It really does. It goes both ways, and we really appreciate the support and the love that you've given to the store throughout the years. So I guess then I will go ahead and close things out, since I popped back up onto the screen and we are at time. So I want to say thank you so much to all of our readers for joining us. Don't forget that you can get signed and personalized books. Yeah, I cannot speak English. Let me try that over one more time. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. And don't forget that you can purchase not just any book, but a signed and personalized book from Sam. Just click the buy book button down below. And we hope you have an amazing rest of the evening. Sam, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing.
Thank you so much for having me. And anybody, if I didn't get to a question, feel free to ask it on Goodreads. I'll be checking in there, and I try to answer questions as quickly as I can over there.
Awesome. Well, have an amazing rest of your evening, everyone, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.